Representative Davnie, thanks for being with us this morning.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
So on January 5th, you announced that after 22 years in the House, you will not seek re-election in 2022. Why did you come to that decision?
Well, it was a difficult decision. It's one that I struggled with for quite a while. Serving my community, serving in the Minnesota House was a dream and has been a genuine, humbling opportunity. But there was a little voice in my head that said, maybe it's time. I think it's an opportunity that my community is ready for somebody new. Some fresh energy, some different perspectives, different relationships and networks in the community. So I just think it's a good time for me to step aside and make room for somebody new.
And just tell us about your community. What's it been like representing your part of South Minneapolis?
Well, it's a very engaged community. People have high expectations for their elected officials and for our responsiveness. I've certainly tried to respond in kind. It's generally politically very progressive. People have a real vision of a Minnesota that works for everyone, that's inclusive of all of our neighbors, and a place where all Minnesotans can thrive. I like to think that my work in the legislature has carried out that vision and those values. It's a community that has had a difficult couple of years in particular. The civil unrest following the police murder of George Floyd hit my community very hard. And we're a resilient community. I saw just amazing amounts of collaboration and connection amongst neighbors in those difficult times and after. Folks are looking to rebuild in the most community-focused way. We loved our small businesses that were so heavily damaged. We want those small businesses and more back. Because they give the feel to the neighborhood. It makes us distinctive. We're different than other parts of the state, and just like other parts of the state like being different from South Minneapolis likes what makes us unique as well. But there's also a lot of trauma from those days, and so trying to work to respond to people and help heal that trauma has been a big part of the last couple of years' work as well.
And what do you think you'll miss most about being a lawmaker?
I always take time every legislative session to take a few quiet minutes, usually with a cup of coffee, and sit in the back of the House chambers and just kind of take in the beauty of that space and the energy of that space, and reflect on the fact that I get to work there because my community lets me do that. It's a humbling experience, and I think I'm going to miss that feeling. I'm going to miss that opportunity to serve. Looking for other opportunities, I'm still a part of my community, but it'll be different.
You're an educator by profession.
Mm-hmm.
You served on education committees throughout your tenure, even now, including the House Education Finance Committee chair. Looking back, what are some of the educational issues or legislation that you're most proud of working on or being a part of?
Well, there's a number of items. One of the things that I'm convinced is important is providing all students opportunities to what we call rigorous coursework in high school. So advanced placement classes, dual enrollment, sometimes known as college in the schools courses, places where they can test out their academic abilities, where they can hopefully reduce the cost of college by getting some college credits ahead of time, things like that. I've put a lot of emphasis on that over the years and led on some of those issues. I'm convinced that We can do all we want with academic standards. If school isn't a safe and welcoming place, kids aren't going to learn. So the work I've done around bullying and trying to make sure that school climates and cultures are positive and affirming is very important to me, and I think important to Minnesota students. And then it's the many different ways that we've tried and need to double down on making sure that we find the strategies that are effective in closing the achievement gaps that we've got between our white students and our BIPOC students, our Black, Indigenous, and people of color students. Those gaps are far too wide. And we need to continue all the energy we're putting into that and more.
And in terms, you still have one session to go here. So
yes, I do.
In terms of 2022, what is your committee going to focus on this year?
I think a lot of it is still going to be wrapped around the COVID-19 pandemic. It is still roiling schools. It's challenging students and families. And so we're going to be looking at what positive role can we play in supporting learning and supporting students and families. Mental health is a concern for students as well as staff. We've usually talked about it, and this is another area that I've prioritized over the years in terms of student mental health and access to services needed. I think now we have to talk about staff mental health as well and their access to services. So we'll be looking a lot at equitable outcomes for students. Again, as I was just saying, we'll be looking a lot at what can we do around COVID to make the educational system work better and support students and families. And there's always, it's a creative bunch on the committee. There will always be additional ideas coming forward. I'm looking forward to the session.
And just finally, do you have a message or advice for the next generation of lawmakers that will eventually run for the House of Representatives?
I ran for the legislature because I loved Minnesota. I probably love it more now than I did even then. We've got a lot of strengths as a state that we need to harness for the benefit of all of us. And we've got a lot of challenges because we don't do that well now. Too many inequities across the state. And we'll be better off if we tackle those inequities, if we protect our environment, if we respond to climate change, if we protect our democracy. Those, I think, are the top issues for me and for the folks who are going to follow me in the Minnesota House.